music, I got to give credit to my good buddy L Rock, who did that music for us. So thanks, L Rock, bringing some ATL bounce to the show. Yes. I'm glad you guys are back. Today is part two of the Donald Trump chart interpretation. And the part one was really about Donald Trump and his personal chart, his native chart, and who he is and why he does what he does. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about transits. So we're going to talk about what's ahead in the future in his next 4 years. It's really going to be great, you guys. I'm very excited. So, okay, let's just jump right in and get started. First of all, let me just say transits are a really great way to use astrology to understand past events as well as future events. And, I don't look at a chart, and I mean, there are some astrologers that get really detailed and they get really black and white and rigid about their predictions, but I don't think that's really what it's for. That's not my way. The way I like to do it and talk about it is that it's the influence that's happening, it's the energy that's happening. So transits to me are really useful to look and say, wow, there probably could be an event that's going to happen around this time, and what are the influences? So it could be really positive, abundant influence, or it could be a big change agent influence. So sometimes it can be more challenging or negative, and sometimes it can be positive. So I would recommend, if you're interested, I'm going to give some actual dates. And it might be fun. I mean, I definitely am keeping these for myself. It might be fun for you to write some dates down, and then we're all going to see exactly what happens when these dates roll around. Because I can't predict exactly what's going to happen, but I can tell you the weather, the weather report energetically when these crucial dates hit Donald Trump's chart. Okay, so let's get going. First, I want to do, before we go to the future, I want to look back a little bit at some of the influences that I think were really strong and really telling leading up to this election. We're going to use our handy GoPro here. Okay, so the first thing I want to do is go back a little bit in history with his chart transits, because there were some really big transits that I think really, really were telling that led up to this election for Donald Trump. Now, first of all, if Donald had come to see me as his astrologer, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and he told me, Laura, I've never been a politician. I don't know the first thing about it. I think I'm awesome, and I want to run for president. Look at my chart and tell me what you think about that. Well, logically, I would say, no way, you're crazy, which a lot of people said that, right? As his astrologer, I would have looked at his chart and I would have seen this buddy right here, Jupiter, which we talked about before, right? Jupiter is the great benefic of astrology, and Jupiter, all Jupiter does is gives us good things, abundance. And whatever Jupiter is transiting expands. So that's the best way to look at Jupiter. The only negative thing about a Jupiter transit is you can gain weight with a Jupiter transit because you can expand. But it's never anything really terrible. It's something you might need to watch if you have a tendency to abuse alcohol and drugs, or you are an addict. Jupiter makes you want to use more or do more. So if you have any kind of addictive tendencies, Jupiter's not good. But mostly, Jupiter just helps us with whatever it is we're doing. Every 12 to 14 years, that's the complete rotation of Jupiter in someone's chart. So if Mr. Trump had come to me as his astrologer a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and asked me this question, I would have looked at Jupiter. And Jupiter, my friends, was right up here, getting ready to roll right down through his personal houses and right over his ascendant. And let's talk about, around August 9th of 2015, which I believe was the first debate with the Republican candidates, that's when Jupiter first hit Donald Trump's ascendant, which, guys, you know, I watch the news, you watch the news, some of the things he said, some of the things that came out in the news, so many people were aghast at some of his comments, and it was literally like he had a bubble around him, that all of these negative accusations or things he said were just bouncing right off him, and his approval ratings were going up. I researched it, he was at about 25% after that debate and shot ahead of the other candidates. And that is in the middle of a hailstorm of, I mean, terrible press and things he was just saying were terrible. And it just didn't affect him. That's Jupiter for you guys. It's literally like this force field around somebody. And Jupiter comes in and just makes things better. So literally for the whole election cycle, he had Jupiter rolling down through his first house, his second house, which, by the way, Jupiter's been going through his second house. It's right here now in his chart. So it's 2 degrees out of his second house. So here's something we know. I know everybody wants to spend a bunch of American tax dollars understanding what his taxes are. So if they want to do it to look for illegal things, great, you can spend my tax money. But if you're trying to figure out if he really has money or not, don't waste your time or effort. He has a bunch of money. And by the way, we talked about this last time. He'll lose it, gain it, lose it, gain it. He's been gaining. I mean, the amount of money the Trump family is making right now, and I know it's a privately held organization, it is insane. Literally the slot machine just came up all cherries for him. Bam, bam, bam. Money's rushing into that business. So they're enjoying that. The other really amazing thing that I wanted to talk about was just the inauguration with Jupiter. Jupiter was trining. Let me show you what this means. Jupiter was trining his sun right here in his 10th house during the inauguration. From January 11th to January 26th, Jupiter trined his sun in the 10th house. Okay, that happens again once every 12 to 14 years in someone's life, and it's the pinnacle, really. It's the pinnacle of his career in life. Would have been that day. So what is a trine? A trine is when a planet aspects something else in your chart at 120 degrees, and it's like 5 degrees before and 5 degrees after. So it's a season where it's always really good. It's not adversity, it only helps, right? So when Jupiter trines your sun, that's you, and for him, Jupiter's trining his sun in the 10th house, which is his house of fame, career, and it's all of the success, and really it's the top of the mountain. You're already a climber. He's already a climber because his sun is in the 10th house. But when Jupiter, which I said this happens once every 12 to 14 years, when Jupiter trined his sun in the 10th house, it's the pinnacle of his career. That was January 11th to January 26th. And right in the middle of that, when it was at its apex, was Inauguration Day. So I just think that's really interesting. And I know there was so much stuff as Jupiter was flowing down through his personal houses and up to inauguration with the Russians. I mean, there was so much bad press. You guys, he's had a force field around him. Jupiter is a benefic force field, and it's just like all the negative's gonna bounce off. Okay, so I just thought that was really interesting to talk about historically what's been going on. So let's talk about some future things that are going to happen and what that can mean for his presidency and for him personally. The first one I want to talk about is on, and you might want to write some of these dates down because I think it's going to be fun to look at these dates and then look back to the news and see what's going on these dates. December 11th, 2017. So that's this December. Now this could start a little bit before December 11th, or it could happen, a little bit after December 11th. But Saturn's going to trine his ascendant. So again, trining is usually a good thing, but I will tell you, Saturn, unlike Jupiter, is always the taskmaster, and Saturn always brings us a bill. Okay? It's like the waiter when you've been drinking and having a great time at a dinner party, and then the lights start to flicker, and the waiter comes up with the tray and says, it's closing time. And by the way, you got to pay. That's Saturn. So it's not necessarily a bad thing because it's trining him, but he's going to be held to task and he's going to be challenged. And his personal ascendant, his personal brand, his image is really going to be challenged around December 11th, 2017. So let's see what that is. It could be, information surfacing. It could be an attack from a foreign leader. It could be an attack. He could be challenged with his brand, with something that happens in the world that he needs to address, that it's really on him. So he's really going to have to be held to task with his image in December. Okay, the next really interesting transit I want to talk about just in general that I found to be fascinating when I started looking at his aspects is that right now, today, Uranus, right here, is transiting into his 9th house. Now, a Uranus transit lasts for many years. So, at times, depending on the chart. It literally today is going into, his chart in the 9th house. So, what does this mean? Uranus changes somebody. Whatever house it's in someone's chart, that's where you're being transformed and you are being opened up to new ideas or new ways of thinking. It's very challenging and it's also very surprising, Uranus. So it's in Donald Trump's 9th house. I think this is really hopeful, and I really wanted to bring this to this podcast today. It's hopeful because Uranus it's ruled by Aquarius, and it's really the visionary planet, and it's the planet of surprise. It's the planet that completely, I call it a tsunami transit, right? It completely demolishes the structure of wherever it is, at whatever house it's in, and it replaces it with something new and better, or it completely destroys the structure of what it's in, and then it gives you a platform to change how you feel about the issues in that certain house. So what is the 9th house, and why is that important to us just as Americans, and why is it important to Donald Trump? Well, I think he is really in for a big awakening. This is the transit where people change their mind. People change their mind about things. People all of a sudden are surprised by what they find out, and then they reevaluate in a very base way what they believed in before. So he's a Gemini. We talked about that before. Yeah. So Geminis, they'll change their mind. So I think he's going to change his mind about some things. Where I don't think he's going to change his mind is what he feels as if he's defending or what he has to fight. Because again, you guys, we talked about this in the last show. He's got Mars on his ascendant. So that means he's going to dig in, and he's going to be very fixed when it comes to where he feels like the United States is being challenged. But more importantly, he'll bond his ego with the United States identity, and he'll feel like he's being challenged because it's on his ascendant. So he will not waver from those commitments. But there could be a lot of things that he's thought about the world or about politics that he's going to be surprised by new knowledge, and he's going to reevaluate his position. And I think that's good for all of us. Whenever Uranus goes through any of our 9th houses, it can really change our worldview. It can really make us be more awake and more conscious. So I think that's a positive thing. The next big transit, you guys, that you might want to make note of. I think this is going to be a really big deal. And mark my words and mark this down. Something's going to happen right around February 7th of 2019. And think about this. This is going to be before the election cycle starts, you guys. Uranus is going to, here we just talked about Uranus, right? It's been going through his ninth house. Uranus is the change agent. And around February 7th, 2019, it's going to trine Donald Trump's ascendant. So something big is going to happen here. I don't know what that is. It could be a world event. It could be, because it's trining his ascendant, I am wondering if it's going to be something that really changes his image. And when I say change, I don't mean a little bit. I mean, everything could be completely turned upside down. And what he was before this transit, he's not going to be after it. Okay? Uranus can be good or bad. It's not it can be really challenging, or it can be winning the lottery. So I promise you something's going to happen. I just don't know what. But I'm going to be biting my nails a little bit in the weeks rolling up to that date, because I know the wave is coming. So I hope he has his surfboard and he's ready to surf it, because it's coming. And a transit like that, being especially a Leo ascendant with a Mars on his ascendant, he's going to want to control things. And he's got a lot of Uranus happening in his presidency. And you cannot, it's bigger than him. It's bigger than him. Uranus is bigger than all of us. It's the Kali. If you guys know about the god Kali, the Indian goddess Kali, she's the great destroyer. And she's not evil or bad, but she clears things without our permission and takes control away from everybody in order to make room for new. So it's the birth and the death energy is really going to be happening here with Uranus for Donald Trump. So in closing, Donald Trump's transits and his presidency coming up, I'll just give you some high notes. Let's recap. His family's fortune and legacy for generations to come, it's blown out of the park. They are going to have more money than they know what to do with for generations to come. So that's a given. The inauguration was the pinnacle of his life. It will never hit that height again. Whether he gets elected or not again, I'm not sure, but that is the high point right there with Jupiter, the Jupiter transit that we discussed. February 7th, Uranus is going to trine his ascendant. That's the date I'm really, really looking at, guys. And it could, again, before that, a few weeks before that and a few weeks after that. That's the season to watch here. And then let's all hold with Uranus transiting Donald Trump's ninth house that his perspective is going to be widened and expanded and changed and more aligned with where this planet's headed, because that's the gift that Uranus gives us, that we'll give him. So thanks you guys for being here. I'd love your comments. I would love to hear suggestions if you guys want me to do other charts like this in the future, and would love your feedback. You can visit my website at lauraboone.org and also on the lightersidenetwork.com. Also, I just want to give a shout out to astro.com, which is free charts. You guys, that's where I pull my charts. And it's a great website, and you can go there and pull your own charts, or you can go and pull this chart and do some reading of it yourself. Thank you so much for watching today. I really enjoyed being here, and I enjoyed talking about this very important topic. And I will see you guys next time on The Real Ethereal Show. Thanks.